and there is a new law in Georgia when it comes to bikes and how they're treated on the road. So be ready. If you live in a neighborhood where there are a lot of bicyclists, make sure you understand this law. We'll tell you what it is next on Your Day in Court.
Yeah, as of July 1st, the law has been modified to clarify the conditions under which drivers of motor vehicles pass people on bicycles. Since 2011, I think it was, Georgia has had a law in the books that said that when you're passing someone on a bicycle, you got to leave at least 3 feet. That's a reasonably safe distance is how it's defined. Part of what I do beyond just representing injured bicyclists is I do a lot of training for law enforcement to teach them about laws as it relates to bicycling. I also do training for riding clubs and teach people how this is how you have to ride legally and responsibly and so forth. And in the course of doing the training, plus in the course of seeing, like, we never saw citations issued for this violation of the 3-foot law, come to realize that law enforcement officers in general just don't know how to enforce that law as it existed. It was very unclear to them. So the modification of the law was intended to make it more clear, easier for police to enforce, to protect the safety of people who are riding bikes. So under the new law, which again took effect as of July 1st, if you're passing somebody who's riding on a bike, if there is a lane next to you that you can safely change lanes and get into that lane, you're required to change lanes. It's a move-over law, similar to...
Almost like, when a car's broken down or an emergency vehicle's on the side of the road.
Exactly. And really it was kind of modeled after how you would deal with sanitation trucks. If there's a lane that you can safely move into, you're required to move into that lane when passing. If you're unable to move into another lane safely, or there is no lane to move into, then you're required to slow down. And so this is in the exercise of due caution, which it says as approaching a bike, exercise due caution. But you're required to slow down to at least 10 miles under the speed limit or 25 miles per hour. And then when you pass the person on the bike, to leave at least 3 feet. And it clarifies that you can cross a double yellow line or solid white line if you need to pass the person on the bike, as long as you can cross that line safely. Now here again, you could cross a double yellow line before this law was put into effect, but the concept was put it all in one place so that police officers understand how it works and can enforce this. The natural reaction of the loudest portion of the driving public is, these damn cyclists, they break the law. Why are they on the road? Why are they wearing spandex? Why are they riding two abreast?
The spandex I actually kind of maybe agree with a little bit.
Yeah, I understand.
I kid.
But the natural reaction is drivers of cars hate people who are riding bicycles. It's an undeniable fact.
It holds up traffic and whatever.
There's any number of reasons why, whether it's envy for the freedom that these folks have, or just sheer annoyance that someone's taking 15 seconds out of your day because they want to be on a bike, whatever it is. And also people are annoyed by the lawlessness behavior that they see from some cyclists.
I got to tell you, I don't know that I've ever seen lawlessness on a bicycle. No. Is there something that stands out? Because I don't know what that might be.
Let's see if there's anybody in our studio who maybe can reflect the attitudes of the driving public.
All right, well, so here's the situation.
Okay, here we go.
And listen, I was at one time a very avid cyclist. I did a bunch of century rides, the Macon to Mercer. I've done them, and I love
a century ride is
100 miles. I have a Cannondale bike with Shimano gears and a special Cellini handlebars. So I wore the spandex and I got the shoes that you clip in. But here's the problem: our roads are a disaster in Metro Atlanta to begin with, okay? There's construction everywhere. There's people with out-of-state license plates from Tennessee and South Carolina, and they've got the look of fear on their eyes when they come through the 285 and 400, and they freeze up, and we've got Winnebagos going to Florida and construction trucks dropping ladders. I don't need another problem. Okay? It's all I can do is to keep my car between the lanes safely without hurting anybody else. In all seriousness, what I'm upset about is that if I make a mistake and run into your Jeep, I'm probably going to do some property damage and you're going to have some whiplash. Mm-hmm. If I make a mistake and hit you, I could really kill a bunch of cyclists, like has happened in many places in the country. Yes. And there's no place for you to go because the lanes are so narrow and the curbs. So that's where I come from. It's like, geez, I don't have enough problems. I've got, 10 guys in spandex weaving around. And I will say most cyclists that I see are obeying the rules as they exist. I think there's more crazier motorcycle riders young people on these racing bikes than there are crazy bicycle riders.
Yeah, And, where you've relocated up to North Fulton County, there's a lot of folks who ride bikes up there.
By the river,
you'll see
all
it,
over the place.
And it's great. Look, I ride up there myself. And so, the fact is the roads are for everybody. They're not just for riders. And Ray brings up a great point, which is that essentially it's a lack of political will to build safe infrastructure where people can ride. And the safest is where you're going to have a real divider.
An actual bicycle lane.
I don't even mean a stripe of paint. I'm talking about this is the space here we're going to allocate for folks who want to ride bikes. This is the space we're going to allocate for folks who want to drive cars, and never the two shall meet. And that's the best and safest way to do it. But in the absence of that, and those things cost money. And look, this came up on Peachtree Street in Buckhead a few years back, where folks say, hey, we want to make Peachtree Street friendlier for folks to be able to walk, number one. And why wouldn't we make it an active corridor where folks can ride bikes so that if you're going to do that half-mile or mile trip to go get ice cream or run up to the store to get one thing, you don't have to get in your car to do it. You can just ride your bike and do it safely. And to do that, we're going to do something called a road diet. We're going to shrink the number of car lanes to make room for pedestrians and bicyclists. And you would have thought, they said, we're coming for your homes. The government is coming and we're coming for your guns and we're coming for your property, because the outcry was, we don't want to narrow the lanes. We want to widen the lanes. We want a racetrack up and down Peachtree Street. Give me the ability to shave 30 seconds out of my day as a carpool mom, and I'll do anything for that, because if you are holding me up by 30 seconds, all hell breaks loose, And so there's just not the political will to create this safe infrastructure, which is really the way to do it. And so in the absence of that, what it comes down to is we're sharing the roads, and everybody has a right to be in those roads. Yes, I agree with you, Ray, and I discourage anybody from riding their bike down 285 or I-85.
Is that even legal? Can you
It's
do
not
that?
legal. That is not legal. And, occasionally you see somebody who is clearly in the wrong place. Usually they are sleeping under an interstate if they're with a bike over there. And so that's not legal. But when you're on a regular highway, even some of the roads like Buford Highway, Buford Highway is a fast track, but folks may be out there on bikes, and so you just got to be mindful of it.
Yeah, I mean, we're just not built for it. Take right here in North Fulton, or we're in Cobb, but North Fulton where I live, Riverside Drive, which runs along the Chattahoochee River. It is one lane in each direction. It is extremely popular with cyclists. Cyclists are on the far shoulder of the road. There's a little painted line and maybe a foot to a foot and a half on the other to the right of that yellow line.
Yes.
And what drivers do, and it's heavily monitored, by the way, by the Roswell police. They're out there all the time, and there's signs that say 25 miles an hour. But when drivers in either direction come upon the cyclists, they are crossing the center lane into the head-on traffic to now make sure there's at least that amount of feet away from the cyclists. So now I've seen a cyclist 100 yards up, and I've got a 3-ton Lexus Q90 coming at me in my lane to get around safely around the cyclists. So if you're causing more danger than your exercise is worth to me, it doesn't make me happy.
Well, so that's an example where the law allows you to do that. What you described is legal behavior by a driver, as long as you're not doing it when there's a car coming at you and it's more dangerous. And in that context, just slow down, just wait. Honestly, the 15 to 30 seconds that's going to come out of your day, not to put people in danger, and it's easy to marginalize somebody, again, in spandex on this little piece of aluminum, seemingly just out there for their own convenience, exercising and your inconvenience. It's easy to marginalize and dehumanize somebody.
I didn't go that far.
But I'm not saying you, but it is.
Okay.
As opposed to that's not a person. That's just something that's in my way. It's an obstruction, and that obstruction doesn't need to be there. But when you step back and realize, okay, that person has as much right to be here as I do. That is a human being. That's somebody who left their house this morning with the same hopes of returning home safely that I have in my car. And then we realize that, okay, there are thousands. I mean, the number of traffic fatalities. We had 16 people killed on Atlanta roads in cars just over the last holiday weekend. Thousands and thousands of people getting killed in cars due to distraction and impatience primarily. How hard is it to just slow down? But the situation you're describing is a situation where, yes, you can legally do that and make a safe pass and cross a double yellow line, just not when another car is coming. And if another car is coming, then just wait.
Well, it's a situation where it's high density traffic. There's people trying to get to work. There's people trying to get their kids to school. There's people changing the station on the radio, or maybe, God forbid, fiddling with their cell phone. And all of these things are truisms, and they're not going to stop tomorrow because we've passed a new pullover law. They're just not going to. And I do agree with you, Bruce. Now, I've been to Europe, and I know about the bicycle lanes. And, In fact, I'm a Tour de France guy. I love watching it. Of course, some nut with a sign knocked out half of the peloton last week, which is insane.
Well, she wanted to get on Instagram.
Yeah, everyone wants to make a TikTok at the expense of...
Nice work. You did it.
But you can also see how easy it is to cause harm to a bunch of professional cyclists. Okay, a cardboard sign wiped out about 30 guys, and I don't know if anybody was seriously hurt. They're all banged up a little bit. So again, from my standpoint, as somebody who tries to obey the traffic laws and doesn't ever want to hurt anybody, but does have to get to work and does have and has other things going on, the sun in my eyes and somebody riding my bumper through that area because everyone wants to go faster, it's a concern to me. It really is. And I think that, we may have some in-town environments that are safer because you have less vehicles traveling at they're traveling at lower speeds than you do out here in the burbs, where you have more vehicles, larger vehicles, traveling at higher speeds.
City of Atlanta just lowered the speed limit on all City of Atlanta streets to 25 miles an hour. And it's largely to try to increase safety for bicycles and pedestrians. And City of Atlanta is doing a lot to try to encourage folks to get around without being in the car. And this is going to happen in other areas as well, because folks they're fed up with the car-centric lifestyle of having to always get in the car just to do the most basic things. So, but yeah, we're not there yet, and it's going to require a certain degree of understanding on the part of the driving public. And until that happens, and if you are a listener who has the same level of animosity as I read on every Facebook page and Twitter page dealing with these issues, the only thing I can tell you is maintain a lot of insurance, because you're going to need it when you hurt one of my clients, and maintain a lot of money cash on hand, because you're going to need it to pay Ray when you get charged with vehicular homicide. And don't make statements
about, I'm going to do something to one of these cyclists one day, because then they'll be taking your house. Now you may be moving towards punitive damages, perhaps intent. So lower the rhetoric. If you're going to have a discussion about this, then go to the public meetings, go to the forums that Bruce and his firm sponsor, where there's information given about cycling laws and what rules we should all obey. And Bruce, I know when you and I are retired down at the Villages, we're going to have that 3-wheel bike with the antenna and a tennis ball or a flag on it and a bell. And
we're amped up golf cart for me.
But we're going to obey the dang traffic rules.
You're absolutely right.
There you go.
Right.
I did read something interesting about that community. It has one of the highest percentages of venereal
STDs.
diseases.
I've read that too. Okay, they get down there, they have a couple drinks, and they're like, how you doing?
Swinging going on.